Today I want to talk about phrases that manipulative people say, especially when you're calling attention to their behavior. If you watch to the end of this video, I'm going to talk about why they say these things, and most importantly, you'll find out the biggest mistake that so many of us made when we're in relationships with manipulative people and how to break the manipulation. With that in mind, let's get started. You know, I really just want to tell you that every time you insult me and you criticize me, especially in front of the kids, I feel so degraded. You make me feel so worthless, and the phrases that you use are awful. You tell me that I'm the scum of the earth, that I'm a sad excuse for a human being. I really would like it to stop. Why do you have to be so dramatic? Why are you acting crazy? You're being a little bit irrational. Seriously, Michelle, I think you're seriously overthinking every little word that comes out of my mouth. I think it's a little too much there. Those statements have something in common. They're said to make you feel like your perception is a little bit off. They're said to make you doubt yourself, and they're also said to reframe the toxic person, the manipulative person, as the logical one, and you are the one with the problem. It's easy to see the manipulation when you're not in the middle of the relationship. It's really hard when you're in the middle of a relationship with somebody that's treating you this way to actually see what's going on. And that's because manipulative people always target people that have the desire to be good people. So when they're accused of something that is false, or when their reality is shifted and the fingers are pointed at them, this is what usually happens. Am I overthinking things? I'm not trying to overthink things. I'm just trying to express myself. Maybe I am being dramatic. I don't want to be dramatic. I don't want to fight. I don't want to have problems. I'm not trying to cause problems. Am I just being too sensitive? Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe it is my fault. Narcissists also use statements with another purpose. And let's see if you can point it out. If not, I will let you know what it is after the statements have been said. You know, I just want to let you know that it hurt my feelings that at the party last night, you danced with every person there but me. You talked with everyone there but me. It was like you were in a relationship with so-and-so because you danced with her the whole night, and I was just sitting there as if I didn't even exist. It really hurt my feelings. Well, maybe if you weren't so difficult to be around, I wouldn't have to do things like that. You know, how could you even accuse me of something like that? That's just ridiculous. You know what? You always do this. I'm sitting here trying to have a little bit of downtime, and you always have to start a problem. Look, we talked about this already. I said I was sorry. Maybe if you were more of a forgiving person, we could just move on and be happy. You are so jealous. It drives me crazy. I can't believe that I'm with such a jealous person. The purpose of those statements is to make you think that it is your fault. So these statements are so effective when you're in the middle of a relationship with somebody because, once again, toxic people choose individuals that are empaths, that are highly sensitive people, people that have a desire to please others. So it's almost like their good qualities are being used against them. Because the thought that something is their fault for an empath, a highly sensitive person, the thought that it's your fault causes you to try harder. Because that's your goal. You want to make the other person happy. So you're trying harder and harder because if it is your fault, you're willing to work on it, which is a beautiful thing. And the reason it's effective as well is because of the fact that it tugs at your feelings of guilt. People that are in relationships with narcissists are usually carrying around unhealed, unresolved feelings of guilt from their childhood. So when toxic individuals use statements, manipulative statements like this, they're touching that unhealed wound, and it hurts. So in an effort to resolve that unhealed wound, often a victim of manipulation will feel motivated once again to try harder and harder. They enter that hamster wheel of running faster and faster and yet never getting anywhere. So now that we've talked about those statements, we've also discussed briefly why they do them. They cause self-doubt. They want you to diminish your feelings, your perspective, and they also want to reframe it so that you're focusing on you. When you're focusing on you and what you have to do better and how you have to try harder, guess who you're not focusing on? You're not focusing on the person that is causing, fabricating, and creating all of the chaos in the first place. And that's exactly what the point is of their manipulation. So I want to talk about the biggest mistake that victims make, and I can say that with confidence because I know I've been there. I've done this same thing. And I want to also talk about how to break it, how to break out of the manipulation so that you're not stuck in that cycle. So the biggest mistake that victims make when they're in a relationship where you're hearing these phrases a lot, where this is happening to you over and over, where every time you try to discuss something that is bothering you, you're met with one of these statements that just sends you spinning or trying harder or feeling guilty, and nothing gets resolved because the only one that's working on it is you. If this is happening to you, the biggest mistake that we all make is trying to prove ourselves to the manipulative person. If they tell us that we're jealous, we try to present all the proof as to why we're not and why it makes sense for us to feel bad when they fabricate jealousy in us. And we present our proof as if it's a court case. If they tell us that we're being dramatic, we try to convince them and make logical sense to them as to why it makes sense for us to be upset because of certain behaviors. And we're trying to help them to see. And there's this thought inside that's telling us, if I can just get through, if I can just explain it the right way, they're going to see it and everything's going to be okay. Guess what? That's a lie that we're telling ourselves. So the biggest mistake is trying to present evidence and logic to a person that doesn't care about evidence and could care less about logic. All they want is drama and narcissistic supply. So you're wasting even more time. You're giving even more supply by over-explaining and trying to convince a person that does not want to be convinced of reality. The way to break out of this manipulation, where you feel like you're trying to prove something, right? And you just can't seem to prove it, and it just leaves you so unsettled inside. The way you break out of it is by proving it to yourself. Recognizing that you are allowed to have your reality even if the other party chooses not to see it. You're allowed to have your perspective even if the other party doesn't agree with it. One of the ways to do that is by writing what's going on and keeping track of it. It's important to start proving it to yourself, because if you don't, what happens if you're in a relationship like this is that little by little, the toxic manipulator is teaching you that all of this is normal. All of their behaviors are normal. You stop complaining about abusive behavior because little by little they've made you feel bad for bringing it up as if you're a bad person. So little by little you begin to think that it's normal what they're doing. I remember when I went through that, and a friend of mine told me, she said, Michelle, you would talk to me and tell me things that were happening. He said that to me, or he says this to me. Is that normal that I'm upset? She said, I wanted to shake you when you said that. But that's what happens. You get to the point where you don't even know if it's normal to be upset. You don't even know if it's normal to bring up someone's behavior, that if it's affecting you in a negative way. So that's a good test to see if you are in a relationship with somebody that's manipulating you as well. Ask yourself, do you ever feel like you wonder if it's normal or not to be upset? You wonder if it's normal or not to bring something up? If your answer is yes, and you wonder sometimes, and you doubt your perspective, that's a red flag that you're in a relationship with somebody that is manipulating you. So the way to break free is to prove it to yourself. In one face-to-face coaching session with one of my clients, what she began to do was interesting. In the beginning, she thought that a lot of the behaviors were normal. It was hard for her to realize, wait a second, I was hurt, and that's normal that I was hurt, and that's okay that I was hurt. It doesn't make me a bad person that I was hurt. And something that helped her was writing down the things that would take place from one session that we had to the next. Not only the things that would take place, but she would track her emotions, what she was feeling. The first time we met after she began doing this, the first thing she said was, I cannot believe how much crazy is going on between one session to the next. She said, if I didn't write it down, I forget. I don't even realize the extent of the manipulation and the abuse. And that's because of what your mind does when you're under stress. And I've done videos on this. Under chronic stress, our amygdala increases, our hippocampus shrinks. And in our hippocampus, that's where our short-term memory is. So you're undergoing stress and your brain is working against you. You're forgetting and you're staying in this. It's accumulating. It becomes normal. It's crazy. So again, break out of the manipulation by proving it to yourself. Get grounded once again in your reality. Trust your reality. Keep track of not only the things that happen, but your feelings on a daily basis. How are you feeling? Keep track of your emotional state of mind, your feelings, your thoughts. By doing that, you'll begin to feel anchored inside. You'll begin to feel grounded, as opposed to feeling confused all the time and as if you're walking through the fog.